What the fuck is up, gang? Back again with another video, and today we're going to be starting a new little mini-series talking about each generation and breaking down all the goods and the negatives about each generation and how they impacted the past and what they're kind of going to look like heading into the future, what I predict that they're going to end up looking like heading into the future. And today we're going to start with what better generation to start with than boomers. Boomers are the generation from 1946 to 1964. They were around for the aftermath of World War II, political divide during the Cold War, things of that nature. So technological revolution, all different types of things that they've experienced and helped contribute to, good and bad. And we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. So first kind of thing I want to talk about is how boomers seem to be in current modern day stuck in the past. No, you cannot call every black person you see colored. Just call them black if it pertains to the story, or just reference them as another human being. You don't gotta call every fucking minority you see colored. That's a big thing. They grew up in that time where the U.S. was transitioning over from, pre-civil rights movement into what we have more modern day, where everyone has rights and liberties, and a lot of them are still stuck in that old time and in those old ways where they have that underlying racism to them. They might not be full out, Jim Crow Klans racism, but they still have that little bit of bias towards other races that don't look like their own. And that, you can tell, it's still in modern day. They've even passed some of that down into their children. And in, our newer generations like, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that's kind of dissipated a little bit, but boomers, especially still to this day, you can see they don't, they clutch their bag when someone that looks different than them walks by them down the street, or they're like, oh, they're one of the good ones, making weird fucking comments like that are just incognito fucking racist bullshit. And that, I think, is just very interesting and speaks a lot to the times they grew up in. And as we're going to speak in the end of this video about how they kind of are stuck in the past and how them in modern day, it's hard for them to grasp what modern day reality looks like in society from a political stance, but also a social stance as well, and how nowadays everyone has, or should at least, be treated equal. Obviously, we know that's not the case. Racism is still a thing that is heavily prevalent in the world today, sadly, and especially in America. There are a lot of racial issues and divide that are caused by economic struggles due to race, and a lot more that I don't have quite the time to break down and get into today, but would love to make a video eventually about. Also, moving on from them just not, kind of growing up in that pre-era to, current day racial standards that we hold people to, they're also just, a little hateful on the younger generation. They think that, the younger generations that come after them are lazy. And I feel like that's something with every generation. Every generation is going to look at the generation that comes after them and it's going to be like, oh, you guys are lazy, you guys don't want to work, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. True that boomers did work very hard and build a lot of good infrastructure in America, as far as economically and physically, infrastructure, building up, cities and things of that nature. But things were a lot easier back then in the sense that there wasn't, much competition. The modern day almost world as we see it today started with that, boomer generation transitioning over from, the past into kind of this modern day world we have today. And they started that. But I just feel like there's a big disconnect as far as them thinking that newer, younger generations are lazy, blah, 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 yada, 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 which a lot of them are. A lot of people nowadays are lazy and don't want to fucking work. I feel like that has to do more with, the way they're brought up and, their parents not fucking putting into them and instilling into them that work ethic that, a lot of boomers had. But also, shit was a lot easier back then. You could get a fucking carton of milk for fucking 25 cents, You get a pound of ground beef for fucking $2.50, Now fucking pound of ground beef's like 13 fucking bucks, You get a house back then for a fucking 6-pack of beer and a handshake, and now a house on average in America is like $500,000, $600,000 for a fucking, 4-bedroom house, So it's just getting to the point where it's that disconnect. They think that, if you just work, enough, you can get whatever you want. True to an extent, but you have to work so much harder and grind so much more than they had to. So yes, if you work hard, you can truly get whatever you want, but the playing field is a lot different in modern day than it was back then, and I think that's where, there's a lot of disconnect that they just don't see or understand. Brings me to my next point about how they messed up a lot of things economically and socially for us. As far as economically, supporting and profiting off of a harsh capitalistic society and way of living and pushing and promoting that. And I believe capitalism is fine to an extent, but everyone, should be able to eat and have a home at the end of the day. Yes, can we have millionaires and even billionaires? Yes, if you work for it and you build that, go ahead. You deserve that, you earn that. But we should not have the people that are working for them not be able to put food on the table, not be able to, pay for an apartment or a house, for themselves and their children. I feel like that's where that disconnect also kind of comes into play of them not realizing or seeing or understanding how much harder economically the world is today than it was in the past. Some of them do, and some of them struggle, but a lot of them, are retired now. They don't give a fuck what the economy's like. They're fucking sitting up on a beach in fucking Cabo somewhere, drinking a fucking Coors Light, or a fucking Dos Equis. Not giving a fuck about what's going on in the world. As far as socially and environmentally, I think they also messed up the world. Climate change, big topic over the last probably 24 years, about how that's going to impact our future, and boomers fucked that up for us. Boomers fucked that up. Boomers just did not give a fuck, they'd fucking drink whatever the fuck they were drinking, just throw that shit on the ground. They didn't give a fuck. Their carbon emissions, sky fucking high levels. Just not giving a fuck. And even to this day, they're still trying to push for legislation to make it so they can have jobs and things of that nature that will severely impact climate and the world for future generations like Gen Alpha and Gen Beta. And that's fucking sad to see, that they just don't give a fuck, and they're so stuck in their ways and just don't, really give a fuck about the generations after them and the world, because true, we're only here for a limited amount of time, but we should also, leave a good blueprint and an example for the generations that come after us. And a lot of boomers seem to not give a fuck and be greedy or stingy or inconsiderate and only care about themselves. And, oh, well, fuck it, I care about making money, so I'm going to make as much money as I can while I'm alive and live the best life I can. And whoever comes after me, fuck them. And that just seems messed up to me. I hope that's kind of making sense. And this brings me to my next and final point. Them not being able to grasp or realize that times have changed. You cannot be openly and blatantly fucking racist. Well, with our current, presidential administration we have in place, they kind of allow or promote that or stir up that shit with, different social media presences online that just spew blatant racist fucking hatred. But, yeah, people nowadays want to be treated equal and think, I would say most people think, that equality and inclusion is a good thing. But obviously the world in America is such a divided place right now and such a hard, space. And a lot of that stems back and can be traced back to boomers. And that's not to put the full blame on them. But they just don't quite understand, how the modern day fucking world works, and that what is important now is not what was acceptable back then, or not, the way shit was back then, and they don't have that, connect. And as far as moving forward, I think a lot of them are going to die out, and they're going to leave us with a world where it's kind of fucked up politically, or these younger generations that came after them are also going to be a little fucking messed up, or think that that shit's okay because, oh, the fucking boomers and, oh, my fucking grandfather fucking taught me this, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And I mean, I don't know. I think as far as moving forward, boomers are, going to die out, and we've already been seeing how easily they get tricked for, fake news, especially with the rise of AI, things of that nature. You can look up how many old boomers have been getting tricked by AI videos online. It's fucking hilarious to see. It's sad, though, also, that these people are this gullible. And if they're watching these clearly, obviously fake, made up AI videos, how easy it is to infiltrate their mind and, spoon feed them just garbage. And that is exactly what our modern day politicians are doing and have been doing for decades with boomers. And it's still continuing, and I think eventually they're just going to die and fade out, and their footprint is still going to be left on our generations after them, and it's going to be, a hard mess to clean up. But I think, millennials and Gen Z are already picking up those pieces and fighting against that hatred and that, disconnect. And I think there's extremists on both sides, but we really got to bring a lot of these fucking broken, shattered pieces back together and try and heal as a country and as, people overall, regardless of race, age, gender, how you identify. We got to come together because we got to clean up this fucking mess the boomers made. Still, shout out to my boomers out there. Love y'all, but y'all fucked some shit up. But that's all I got for this video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell me what you guys thought about the video in the comment section below, and if you guys like this series, enjoy it, want me to keep making more, and how you think boomers are going to keep moving into the future and what their kind of fate will be. And remember, guys, if you guys have not, make sure you comment. Come pick up a copy of my brand new book, The Simplicity and Complexity of Life. Link is going to be down in the description below. And till next time, peace out.